They know that Israel is a hugely unpopular issue. And that is where we are right now as a country. Americans are not happy with Israel. I think Pew found for the first time ever, a majority of Americans have an unfavorable view of Israel. Surprise, surprise. A majority of Americans want restrictions on arms sales. I don't know if you guys saw the Data for Progress poll that came out this week. Astonishing numbers from New York primary Democratic voters. 79% say the US should restrict arms to Israel. 78% say Israel's committing a genocide. 86% say the $30 billion paid to Israel since October the 7th will be better spent at home here in the US. These are Democratic primary voters who are not being represented in Congress. There's no representation of those views in Congress. Not at all.
I mean, I would say that the majority of Jewish Americans also have an unfavorable view of what Israel is doing. And the majority of Jewish Americans do not want...
But Congress doesn't, Jeremy. That's the point. But the Democratic Party does not.
But you're seeing a very, very significant shift. I mean, you are seeing unanimous letters coming out of the Senate that are condemning what is going on. You are seeing increasing calls for restrictions on aid. I mean, you are seeing...
No, Jeremy, come on. We're sitting on a day where there's going to be a vote for Bernie Sanders' arms bill. That is not going to get a majority of Democrats, let alone a majority of members of Congress. That is the tragedy we're in. You can sign all the letters you want, but as long as they keep voting for arms and money, they are complicit in the genocide, and they are not representing the party base. I have not seen such a disconnect on any issue from the Democratic Party, where you've got 80-90% of Democrats saying one thing, and in Congress, it's 80-90% the other direction. That's a crisis of democracy at this point. In fact, if you read Western media coverage, it's always the brutal October the 7th act, the horrific October 7th act, and then it's like Israel defended itself and killed some civilians by accident. So the discourse is completely one-sided. And in terms of evil, let me just finish my point. Nick Maynard, a British surgeon, came back from Gaza and said he saw Palestinians being shot for target practice by Israeli snipers. He said he saw patterns of injury, one day legs, one day hearts and abdomens, one day 4 kids in the testicles, right? There is no other word for that but evil. And when you say, we can't pick a side, look, the Balkans had a genocide, and we all agreed that the Serbs were the bad guys. No one went around saying we need to be pro-Serb and pro-Bosnian. We accepted that the Milosevic and the Serbian state was a pariah state, had broken international law, had carried out a genocide, had to be punished. Now, we can get into debates about military action in the Balkans, that's for another day. But the reaction is the world did not go around saying we need to be pro both sides. And I think this is the fundamental problem here. Whatever happened pre-October 7th, whatever debates we want to have about two-state solution, one-state solution, liberals, that's all irrelevant to me right now. I just see a daily genocide on my screens. I see people being killed by Israel every day, sometimes in the hundreds per day. And I think to myself, no, I can't be pro that. How can you be pro that? How can any moral person be pro that? And I think that's where the American public is now shifting with global public opinion. And that's why Israel is so isolated now.